Hey everybody, how's it going? I hope you're doing well. So in this video, I want to show that it is possible and maybe even probable that Comet Ison was the ninth sign that the Hopi predicted, the blue star kachina. So this is the book that Frank Waters wrote in 1963. It talks about the legends of the Hopi and how they predict the destruction of our current world will occur after 9 signs are fulfilled. And Bob Frissell also talks about these 9 signs in his 2003 book. He interviewed this Hopi elder named Whitefeather, and Whitefeather describes the 9 signs as this. So first of all, the coming of the white-skinned men who will take the land that is not theirs and who will strike their enemies with thunder. So we know this happened, and the guns may represent the thunder that they were using. The second sign is the coming of the spinning wheels filled with voices. So that may refer to the wagon trains that traveled across the U.S. The third sign is a strange beast like a buffalo, but with great long horns, will overrun the land in large numbers. So that seems to be the cattle. The fourth sign is the land will be crossed by snakes of iron, which seems to be the railroad tracks, first mode of transportation after the wagons. The fifth sign will be the land shall be crisscrossed by a giant spider's web, which seems to refer to the power lines on one level, and on another level it may refer to the global communications network that also sort of looks like a spider web. The sixth sign is the land shall be crisscrossed with rivers of stone, so that's the highways and the freeways. And the seventh sign is you will hear of the sea turning black and many living things dying because of it, so the oil spills. The eighth sign is you will see many youth who wear their hair long come and join the tribal nations to learn their ways and wisdom. So that was a popular thing to do in the hippie era. The ninth sign is you will hear of a dwelling place in the heavens above the earth that shall fall with a great crash. It will appear as a blue star. Very soon after this, the ceremonies will cease. So this ninth sign, as described by Bob Frissell, is slightly different from this earlier book that Frank Waters put out. So Frank Waters in the earlier book in 1963 said the final ninth sign is a blue star far off and invisible, which will make its appearance soon, that will remove its mask during a dance in the plaza. This is the blue star kachina. But apparently a kachina can represent anything in the natural world or cosmos. So it could be a star, but it also can be a comet. And according to Waters, after the blue kachina appears, the day of purification will occur and the white brother will return. Well, the white brother may refer to the twins or the two brothers that are described in the other Mesoamerican stories. So the Aztecs, the Mayans, and the Hopis all have these myths having to do with the twins or the two brothers. In the 1987 book, The Fourth World of the Hopis, that was written by Harold Kuhlander, we're told that the white brother will return from the east wearing red. So that may have a connection with the red kachina, which the Hopis believe will purify the earth after the blue kachina makes its appearance. So this white brother is also called the Pahana, and in Hopi legend, the Pahana will return dressed in red with the broken off cornerstone. So this is an excerpt from Frank Waters' book. It says, The Fire Clan was given a sacred tablet by Masawu, who, as the giver of fire, was their chief deity. In this version, the human figure was purposely drawn without a head, and a corner of the stone was broken off. Masawu told them that eventually the Pahana would return, bringing the broken off corner of the stone. Okay, so this apparently is an illustration of these ivory tablets that the Fire Clan possessed. And this is out of Thomas Mill's book, The Truth. So you can see right here, this is the broken off cornerstone, which seems to parallel, it's missing obviously, and the Pahana will bring it when the Pahana returns. But this seems to parallel the missing head, which is on the front of the tablet and is circular. So this missing circular head parallels this missing stone, so possibly a circular stone. The other thing that I noticed about this is that the Fire Clan is what possessed this tablet. So possibly is it referring to a fiery red stone that will return coming from the east? In other words, an asteroid. Possibly. But the other thing is, the Hopi legend of the Pahana closely resembles the Aztec legend of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, that also shares resemblance to Jesus in that he was born of a virgin, known as the morning star, and expected to return at some point in the future. So I think the Mormons actually believe he was Jesus. But Quetzalcoatl also shares similarities with the Mayan Bolanyokte, Kukulkan, and the Hero twins. So this table right here shows a few of the similarities between the Aztecs, the Maya, and the Hopi. So Quetzalcoatl has a twin brother, which is similar to the Mayan Hero twins and the Hopi two brothers. Quetzalcoatl is also known as a feathered or plumed serpent, which is similar to the Mayan Kukulkan and the Hopi Awanyu, which is a horned or plumed serpent. I also wanted to point out that this may connect with the Hebrew texts and other ancient cultures who talk about the fiery dragon. So this feathered serpent may also be the fiery dragon. So on some of the monuments, Quetzalcoatl is accompanied by this phrase, nine wind, which seems to have a connection to Bolanyokte, which anthropologists believe to mean ninth god, which also may tie in with the Hopi ninth sign. So this ninth sign blue kachina seems to parallel Bolanyokte and Quetzalcoatl, who also parallels the red Pahana, which will return. Okay, so how does all of this tie into Comet Ison? Well, there's this ancient stone monument in Central America called Monument 6, which has been translated to say that Bolanyokte will become visible and or descend in the years starting on the winter solstice of 2012. So here are three slightly different translations from different anthropological teams. In 1996, archaeologists Stephen Houston and David Stewart translated the monument as saying, the 13th Baktun will be finished on Forahau, the 3rd of Kankin. Unknown will occur. It will be the descent of the 9 support unknown gods to the unknown. Then in 2000, scholars Nikolai Grube, Martin Zender, and Simon Martin translated the monument as saying, it will happen unknown, he will descend. And then the most recent translation, as far as I know, was by Sven Gronemeyer and Barbara McLeod, which says it will be completed the 13th Baktun, It is 4 Ajah 3 Kankin, and it will happen a seeing unknown. It is the display of Bolanyokte in a great investiture. So we have two translations saying this will be a descent of some kind, and the most recent translation saying something will become visible at this time. So the question is, what is Bolanyokte, and what is this date for Ajah 3 Kankin? Well, from what I've gathered, there isn't that much reference to Bolanyokte, but according to Jeff Stray, the word is associated with dangerous transition times, eclipses, natural disasters, and the creation of new worlds. And he says that Bolon means 9. As far as the date Ajah, for Ajah 3 Kankin, if you want to understand why anthropologists and archaeologists are sure that this date does correspond with December 21st through the 23rd of 2012, I explain it in this video that I uploaded a couple of years ago. I'll leave a link below if you're interested. But basically, they have this thing called the GMT correlation, where they compared the Mayan records with the Gregorian records, and they made correlations between those two calendars, and they were able to determine that December 21st to the 23rd is the date on Monument 6. So I've been saying for several years that this date referred to the appearance of a celestial object, possibly, and that object may descend or appear in the sky in the year starting on the December solstice of 2012. And the reason that I've been saying that is it was very common for ancient cultures to start their year on either the solstice or the equinox. And the idea that the ancient Mesoamerican culture may have started their year on the winter solstice is not unreasonable, because we know they were very aware of the cycles of the sun, moon, and the stars. So it makes sense that they would also be aware that in the northern hemisphere, the sun is at its highest position in the sky on the summer solstice right here on June 21st, and that on the winter solstice, December 21st, the sun reaches its lowest point in the sky. So in the northern hemisphere, on December 21st to the 23rd of each year, the sun begins its rise in the sky. So it goes from being at the lowest point, and then it starts rising up to its higher point in the sky. So that's a very good reason why they may have actually started their year on that date. So we know that a big chunk of Monument 6 was missing, so they don't know what, they can't determine what it said, but it is clear by at least two of the translations that Bolanyokte was due to descend in association with that date. So very well could have been that it was due to descend in that year starting on the winter solstice of 2012. So basically, in the year that starts in December 2012 and ends in December 2013, in that year they're saying something will descend and or become visible. And that's what happened with Comet Ison. So Comet Ison passed around the sun in November of 2013. And even though it didn't become the great comet that many people hoped it would be, that doesn't mean that it wasn't a great comet the last time it passed around the sun. And I want to prove to you that it is possible and even probable that Comet Ison did pass the sun in our ancient past. So this is an article from NASA. You can pause to read that if you want. Basically, it just says that originally they calculated that the eccentricity of Comet Ison was that it was hyperbolic, and so they postulated that it was probably entering our solar system for the first time ever. In other words, its trajectory is what they used to determine that. But the important thing to understand is that the word hyperbolic doesn't automatically mean that the comet was entering our solar system for the first time. So like in this journal right here, this is the Journal of the British Astronomical Association, it says hyperbolic can mean either that it's falling into the solar system for the first time, or it's in the process of falling out of the solar system, meaning it's been orbiting our sun, but it's in the process of falling out. The other thing is the comet's orbital trajectory is subject to change. So that's how they determine whether it's hyperbolic or parabolic. They calculate its trajectory. But the trajectory is subject to change each time it passes the sun. So here's another article right here that you can pause to read if you want. But there are different circumstances that can alter a comet's trajectory each time it passes the sun. So for example, a different location of a large planet like Jupiter or Saturn, its gravitational pull affects the comet's trajectory. Another thing is the comet may partially break up as it passes the sun, which affects its trajectory in the future. Here's another article right here. This is written by Phil Plait. He writes a lot of articles for NASA, and he was part of the Hubble telescope team. Anyway, he explains that the Jet Propulsion Laboratory data indicated that Ison's orbit was closed just before it passed the sun. In other words, their calculations indicated that it was not entering our solar system for the first time, but that it was actually revolving our sun regularly. So their calculations right before the comet whipped around the sun indicated that the comet was not hyperbolic but parabolic. So obviously we know that Ison is not going to pass the sun again in the future because it disintegrated shortly after this article was written. But what he's saying in here is that if it had survived the turn around the sun this time, it would have come back in approximately 400,000 years. And they can calculate that because they look at the trajectory of the comet and the eccentricity of it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it was here 400,000 years ago, because the trajectory of a comet can change as it passes the sun. So the trajectory as it was thousands of years ago may not have been the same as it is now. And as he confirms in his own article, he's an astronomer, and he's saying himself, okay, you might think that this is an exact science, but really it's not. The methods that the astronomers use to determine orbital periods are not an exact science. So they can calculate what it's going to be in the future, and especially with these long period comets, I would imagine. They can calculate what it's going to be based on the trajectory as it is now, but again, in the distant past, that trajectory may have been different. So that would mean the orbital period was different. But the point I'm trying to make in this video is that yes, it is possible that Ison passed the sun in the ancient past, and that it's even probable that it did, according to the Jet Propulsion Laboratory data. And here's the other really interesting point in this article here, these astronomers are saying that Comet Ison may have actually been a fragment of a much larger comet that circled around the sun in the distant past. So not only is it possible and even probable that Ison circled the sun sometime in the past, but it's also possible that it was much larger the last time it passed and that it fragmented that last time. And that may have caused meteors to hit the Earth in ancient times. So here's what we know. Ison was a bright blue comet that descended from north of the ecliptic in the same year the ancient Monument 6 said an object would descend and become visible. And although it disintegrated in this current passage, that doesn't negate the possibility that Ison was bright and visible in a former passage around the sun thousands of years ago, especially since there is also the possibility that it was a fragment of an even larger comet. We also know the ancient Maya were avid astronomers. They accurately predicted solar and lunar eclipses thousands of years into the future, so it makes sense that they could have accurately predicted the passage of this comet. Also, the fact that Monument 6 makes a point of recording this passage may indicate that this was the blue star that the Hopi saw in ancient time that preceded the red kachina. So Ison seems to have been Bolanyokte, or at least a fragment of it, and also may have been the Hopi blue kachina, harbinger. So again, even though we didn't see it in our current modern era, it may have been the object that the ancients saw in the sky before the Pahana fiery redstone came from the east. So that's pretty much it. If you guys are interested in how this ties in with the ancient Hebrew texts and the events that actually occurred in 2012 and 2013 that were very specifically predicted in those Hebrew texts, then I recommend checking out my ebook, or you can check out some of the links that are listed below in the description box under this video. So I hope you guys are doing great, and I will talk to you later. All right, bye-bye.